It's the longest running struggle in the history of the NAL. Two franchises who have been at each other's heels since 2019. 28 series, 47 maps played over 5 years, and now it's time to write the 29th chapter in this historic battle. Welcome back to the North American League. I'm Jacob, he's Jays Wills, he's Foxay, and this is Darkzero and Spacestation, the single biggest rivalry among two North American teams ever in NAL history.
Yeah, they have a lot going on the line. Obviously, being both big teams, you're usually going to see one of these two teams end up in the top 4. So getting each other out of the way pretty early on means that they get to scrim each other for the rest of the season. So obviously, it's a win-win for both teams.
What's crazy to me is when this began, all the way back in the day in 2019, the first recorded matchup I've got between these two teams, at least on Wikipedia, is January 14th, 2019, and it ended in a tie. A 6-6 tie. I didn't even know we had ties back then.
Way back then we did, yeah. I mean, draws were the bane of Space Station's existence. That's where the whole Draw Station gaming meme was born from. Literally the dark ages of Pro League way back when.
Oh, they had so many ties. I mean, I'm sure they're a lot happier now. Obviously, they've been doing really well internationally and then coming home, just making their team a little bit stronger. I mean, they've been looking pretty good. And so is DZ when it comes to international.
Overall, since 2019, we've had so many different battles between both of these teams. It's a 13-12 series record for Darkzero, keeping in mind there are 3 ties total between both of them. But Space Station has won 24 maps next to Darkzero's 20, and they just played in the upper bracket of the recent 6 Invitational, where Darkzero knocked them off 2-1. So overall, both of them have been neck and neck for seemingly ever over the past 5 years.
This is crazy evenly matched. I had no idea it was this tight.
I think both teams, obviously, from the last event too, in the last picture, we see Canadian and Ashen just screaming at each other pretty much.
That moment was fun.
And I think that was a highlight, especially everyone giving props to Ashen for standing on business, even though they lost. Him still standing there and screaming. I mean, it just goes to show that little bit of banter, but it adds an extra element. Both teams want to slaughter the other team.
I think that there's a lot of things that we obviously want to do to somebody in the server, but based on the way that both teams played just last week, one of them had the result they were looking for. The other, we kind of got to talk about the moments where things really don't go according to plan.
Oh, and it really didn't go according to plan. DZ had high expectations. They were riding a high after a very good 6 Invitational performance, especially considering the circumstances that got them there. They brought in Nafe, they brought in Bolo. They're bringing in 2 guys that, of course, are quite talented in their own right, but still need to get used to this new roster. It was about getting them up to speed, getting them ingrained in that system, and they started that process very successfully.
I mean, at SI. It was very successfully.
I was thinking,
so now we have to
literally
rope the entire thing back to how they played from just last week. They had the Sonics. It was the other team that was also top 6 at the recent Invitational, and we all thought whoever wins this game is going to open up their season, and it's going to be fantastic. Darkzero had probably the worst opening you could have had that wasn't just a straight 7-0, and now they're looking to bounce back from that.
I think they're the team that had the most pressure going into the start of this stage, and I believe Nafe was the one that tweeted after the game saying, "We just didn't play like ourselves. We were not there today."
Tough when you go up against a tough opponent like that, one that you do have so much history with, but we expected so much more out of them, and that's why it kind of hit a little different, because they really did not show up with such high expectations. Like I mentioned, with after that SI run, you expected a little more from them, and we need to start seeing that as we get into this week 2, week 3.
I'm curious if the expectations that Darkzero thinks they have on their own shoulders also hold up when we talked to NJR before this stage started. Let's see what he said. Well, I guess NJR wasn't saying anything after all.
Just speaking into the void.
I actually read lips, and he said that we are the best team in North America, and we're going to smoke SSG.
Well, perfect,
that's
because
what he was saying.
That doesn't really go well after his performance just a couple of days ago,
Good
right?
freaking segue. Dude, Jonah's only been here for less than 24 hours, and he gets how a desk works.
He had a tough showing, right? All jokes aside, right? Again, high expectations because this guy has been on an uphill trajectory since the Disrupt days. He goes Disrupt, he goes DZ, and it feels like every single year, every single stage, he gets better and better. Last year, top player. Rated across the entire league in Stage 1, top 3 in Stage 2.
Best player at SI.
Talk to him.
Best player at SI. The guy's great. I mean, he's right there. Look at him. He wasn't talking to us, but I'm talking to him. The point is, last week, not his day.
Nope.
No.
He did not load into the lobby. 3 and 8 overall. And really just did not give DZ that kick in the pants they needed when clearly they were so behind.
And I hate to harp on him and say it was just his fault that the team lost. Obviously, it was not just his fault. It was a pretty abysmal showing, obviously. Sonics just steamrolled through them. They had the right responses. They had the right answers. They just weren't there to back up the gunshots, unfortunately. And I especially think the map took a huge play into it, too, because we know that NJR is such a pivotal player, but he plays these positions where he loves to lock down areas. And when he gets tested, he shuts down whoever's in front of him. Clubhouse is not that map. You have to be very proactive on it, and it just wasn't his day.
We're not going to say that one loss ever goes to just one player unless it's literally a 1v1 round 15 overtime clutch, in which case, yeah, you can pin a win or a loss on just one player. But we're not saying the same thing about NJR because, one, only one game, so there's still way more that we have to see from how Nafe and Bolo play in best of one. That was the first time they played a game. And it wasn't a best of 3 because all of SI was conformed to just best of 3s. So we'll see how they do in the actual league format going forward against Space Station Gaming. This is one of those rosters that everyone thought made just the perfect adjustment coming into the season. Only one player change. Iconic joins the team, and suddenly everyone thinks they have what it takes to make a balls to the wall run for a major title.
And speaking of star players, I mean, Iconic didn't do too hot last week either, but he was there leading the team. He was there behind the charge and making sure they had that extra little bit of trajectory in the mid to late round. And that's what they brought him on for, is to just have the little bit of guidance. And obviously they looked really good. They had a game plan from start to finish all the way through. But when it comes to a team like Darkzero, obviously Darkzero loves game plans.
Yep.
So I'd expect to see a little bit of spice out of SSG today. I'd expect them to see very balls to the wall, like you were saying, just aggression.
No, this should get fiery. And with the change they made, right, you lose hot and cold. You do lose a little bit of that stability, someone who's consistent, that backbone, right? But you replace it with the Batman. You replace it with the hero of this league.
What other gifts is he tweeting out these days? I don't know. Is he on to like Peaky Blinders or something?
Who knows?
Or was that an old gimmick? What is Iconic tweeting today?
What is Iconic? It's a great question. Dave, listen, when he's locked in, he's locked in. And the heroics, the clutch power, some of the historic moments that he's had, kind of perfect for a matchup that could get chippy like this, don't you think?
He wasn't the guy that showed up in that game last week, though.
No.
That was Ashen, and oh my god, it's like, as soon as SSG picked him up, it was a match made in heaven.
And it's kind of nice I'm slotting right into Laxing's seat here because Laxing was all about Ashen. He was hyping him up pre-game, and I mean, he was spot on. Ashen was delivering consistently as well. 13 and 8 overall. Just really good at helping his team take space early, maintaining that space. You see him providing some good cutoffs there. He was someone that SSG relied on to establish their foothold in each round. Something that, as you know, right, is critical to success.
I mean, what is there not to love? He's the main entry roamer on SSG, and obviously if you give him area to play loose and he's getting those 1v1s significantly, LG was giving him those 1v1s. So he was capitalizing on it. Obviously he was thriving, and obviously he was in the best spot, best position possible. But Darkzero is a different beast. The way Darkzero plays is very slow and methodical. They don't give you those ones. They try to push you into these positions that they're crossfire, that they're held. They want you to get aggressive. They want you to do that. But Ashen isn't just a pretty face and a good gun. He also is a very smart player in the way that he plays. He takes his time and he plays off of his team. And SSG is very good at preparation. And after the first week of them having a lot to go off of what DZ wasn't doing right, I think they're going to have a lot of good obstacles to overcome and ways to, I guess, shut Darkzero's slow passive style down.
Well, the last time they played upper bracket of SI, best of 3, Darkzero won that, even though it still went to a map 3. We have a cafe on deck. And I do remember several battles between these teams, especially just last year. I remember a best of one where both these guys played. Very different roster compositions overall. How are we feeling about the Cafe pick for this one?
It's a worrisome map if you're SSG because we just said NJR loves holding positions. I think everyone talks about NJR on the white window upside down rappel. That guy, you cannot get him off that white window. So that's obviously a little worrisome if I'm SSG, but SSG picked the map. So obviously they know what they're getting when NJR is going to be on that window. They know he's going to be there. And I think that's exactly what they wanted.
This one, yeah, I don't know exactly how to feel here. I even DM'd Laxing just a few moments ago when we learned of the map to see if his prediction might change.
Okay.
Because this one could get a little shaky.
Did he say anything different about his prediction?
I'm going to check right now, and I'll let you know.
Oh, dude, we're doing a live prediction?
He live
Okay,
Twitter DM.
Well, while he pulls his DMs up, we'll do predictions for everybody else. Fox, are you changing your prediction based on what you think the map is, or how do you see this one swinging?
No, I just think that DZ needs to prove himself, especially after last week. It was very slow, very sluggish.
Okay.
And I think SSG came out firing. Obviously, in my opinion, LG is a weaker opponent compared to how Darkzero is looking out to be. I'm still going to stay with my prediction of SSG.
All right, SSG locked in. What's the live prediction from
The
Laxing?
verdict is that he is going to stay with his original prediction, which was not SSG. It was DZ.
Let's go! Some dissension on the desk, finally!
Finally, we got a little bit of that,
I was going
right?
to say, there had to be someone shift up, and of course, Jesse goes with the Space Station pick. But Laxing has gone rogue, and if he were to win this, he jumps above Jesse a little bit.
Well,
Makes sense.
Rogue's not an NA. Rogue's not a team in the NA.
Nice.
You said they gone rogue. I mean,
All right,
they're
Parker
not a
Mackay,
team.
settle down. That's
Oh,
absolutely the kind of dad joke you're not supposed to be the one making. Is what it is. It's time for the heavyweight fight. It is big fight feel here in Philadelphia for the 29th time in history. Darkzero and Space Station. Boys, have fun.
Well, thank you so very much. The new look of Darkzero that we saw at the 6th Invitational looks to rebound after its disappointing first match last week. As for Space Station, they just want to keep rolling, baby. They dispatched LG 7-3. They're just going to keep banging on all cylinders. But if the map of Cafe proves to be too much, then it might give DZ an opening of their own. A big fight feel it certainly does give off. And I think the social prediction just goes to show how close it is. 60% saying DZ, 40% for SSG. Nick, what are your expectations of this matchup?
I mean, looking at DC going into SI just in February, I was thinking, okay, they pick up Bolo and Nave. You know, they don't have that much experience together yet, but they came in very strong in this expectation. I was really hoping and praying that they would stick it together as a roster because Bolo was only a temporary pickup for Invite alone, whereas Nave was a long-term deal. But then after SI finished, everybody was happy with what happened. They have now signed a long-term deal with that entire roster, and they're here to stay. I'm very excited for the long-term future of PC with this specific set of players. But so again, domestic play versus international competition is a different kind of beast. And you gotta do well domestically first before you make it to international. We'll watch how they do. SSG, they banned the Ying. Darkzero answered with Dokkaebi and Asami. And then SSG rounded things off by banning the Valkyrie. Intel, of course, been banned from both sides. And Intel is key on Cafe, so it makes sense.
Yeah, if you just want to reference these operator bans as well, Ying still far and away the clear-cut favorite for most banned attacker. 7 times banned so far through the entirety of the North America League. That's just over 85%. Dokkaebi in second with 3 bans now. So the 2 most popular attacking bans will show themselves off. In terms of defenders, it's a grab bag. You've got Kaid, Fenrir, and Azami all sitting with 3 bans at the top of the defender ban list, and you've got one of those banned right now. Darkzero got rid of the Azami. Valkyrie bringing up the rear with 2 bans will now make it 3 as that's removed from SSG. Valkyrie, obviously a good operator on every single map, but in particular, especially good on the bigger maps where you can hide those cams all over the place. Cafe is not necessarily known as a huge map, but there are parts of it where a Valkyrie camera can give you a ton of information. Also, why is Iconic's name still not iconic yet? Like,
Names are hard, you know? It's yeah. We gotta get someone on that. I'm not gonna lie. But hey, here we go. EC on attack, HSG defense. Now, like most of the maps like we saw today, like Clubhouse, it can be very hard to attack on Cafe. It's a map where you find yourself in a difficult spot just simply entering the building. You go on the roof, you pop the hatches, the second you drop, you're under fire, C4s below, people in piano, mirror windows staring you down like we see right now from Ashen. It's just very complicated, really. One operator that has been brought into Pro League with a recent buff is Grim. That's an operator that has started making Cafe a little bit easier to attack. Same thing with someone like Capital. These utility-oriented operators really help clear out those strong positions from defenders and put attackers in a better, more comfortable spot. For this particular round, no Grim, but Bolo is on Capital duty. So when they find those players in those strong positions, they can use the fire and get rid of them.
This nitro cell that we see on the laundry window, or well, rather laundry going up into the cocktail window, is one that has been practiced many, many times. There it goes. DZ avoids it just for now. Fortunately for DZ, they lost Canadian very early. SSG will lose Fultz in response. Both of these teams now struggling. Down one player, but DZ are close enough. Olo can taste it. Right now, playing that small opening inside a bathroom, looking into back bar. Ashen falls to Nath. DZ with the upper hand for the moment. Just a little over 1 minute to go.
Yep, still looking good. With a minute to go, as you said. The issue is, J9 upstairs, holding down with the fire. We spoke about it. He's gonna burn all the way down. No escape for him, even if he tried. And now DC are very much in the driver's seat with 4 players against 2, and every member in basically full health, thanks to Nave on the finger, boosting people up with those adrenal surges.
SSG will just sit and wait now as DZ storms their way into the top floor. Bomb site's not up there though, so after you get hold of that diffuser, you need to get down and actually tackle this reading defense that you see unfolding as we get the beautiful boogie drone ripping through the floors. Diffuser's been picked up by Pambazoo, but the objective might not be that important. As Iconic falls, it's all up to Forest, playing bottom white. Rotating over to reading. Get a good beat on somebody there. Slaughters Bolo. Pambazoo still with Diffuser. Spam pings inside of the site, likely from a bulletproof camera or even a yokai drone. Doesn't matter how they got it. That's all she wrote. DZ prevail in the round number 1.
And it's a clean start. I mean, from start to finish, really, it's a solid DC round where whenever we speak about this team, we think, okay, fundamentals, methodical, kind of slow. That's probably their biggest weakness. They have a lot of rounds, not just with this roster iteration, but ever since Troy joined, basically, where they will be executing with 5-10 seconds left. And if one thing goes wrong, if that diffuser planter goes down, for example, the round with that is also lost. Even in that previous round, it's 4 versus 2. Into a 4 versus 1, they start planting with less than 6 seconds left. It's just a little too close for comfort, but when it works, it absolutely works. SSG, they got 4 different bombs they can play. They just gotta make the choice, which one do they want more? They're starting on these more dynamic bomb sites. They started reading and a library. Now they're going dining and mining. And this makes sense. When you play top floor, you're kind of stuck in corners. When you're playing that kitchen bomb site downstairs, you're kind of stuck in corners too. This makes for the more dynamic bomb sites that we see right now on the primary floor to be what most teams prefer to play right now. Especially like I mentioned earlier, because of operators like the Grim, like the Capital, when you're forced into playing these very static positions, like on the top floor cocktail bomb site, you just find yourself not really having a chance to truly fight back. So, that's why they're gonna choose these bomb sites instead. Also playing the Mossy, the Mute, again, Intel, a very big priority here for teams, both in terms of denying it from the opponent, but also gaining it for themselves. It's why we see, again, Mute, Mossy on defense, and Forest on the attack. Technically, Ram has a drone, the Boogie drone, but it doesn't really give you intel, it just destroys the floor.
See if Canadian survives the first minute to a minute and a half of action in this round. So I suppose you can add Ram to that drone operator lineup that we talked about earlier, which was Flores, Brava, and Twitch. I do like different drones being brought, and while Canadian is still not very much alive, but also involved the other way. J90 killed Canadian in round number 1. How about Canadian killing J90 to start off round 2?
Beautiful, isn't it? I mean, the great thing about Canadian dying early, if that were to happen again, is that as the leader of the team, the IGL, you can make a ton of calls because you now have freedom. When you're actively playing in a round, like any other player, you gotta worry about your aim, your positioning, what's going on, sounds, etc. When you die, however, and you're watching player point of views and cameras, you have so much more mental freedom to just lead the team in the right direction. And it's why Canadian doesn't play the typical laid-back, super supportive role in attack and defense. He plays almost in the front very often, especially on the defensive side, because when he then dies early on, if that happens, he can still lead the team. DC progressing top floor right now. Flashbangs, fire going out. We see the roamers falling back. They are surrendering all of top floor control to Darkzero with a full minute and 10 seconds to work with. Again, this mining and dining bomb site, so verticality is still important, but not inside of Cocktail, but more so inside of Piano. That's where we expect Canadian to go to with those boogie drones of Ram. But they still think there are roamers, it looks like. They're double, triple checking every single corner before saying, guys, the coast is clear. And sadly, no, the boogie drones, it's a disaster. The first one gets caught on the bottom of the wall. The second one gets destroyed by being tossed into the wall. Or perhaps by the other boogie drone. I'm not entirely sure.
They have a mind of their own, don't they? Down goes Iconic. Unafe. Now Fultz will follow DZ's entry on Cafe, picking up where it left off. Forrest denying a flawless round as he punishes NJR, but now a long rotate over to the bomb site. Forrest does have a nitro cell in back pocket. It's possible with the right read that he could do some serious damage to DZ. Forrest battling the caliber-based destruction of a shotgun, trying to retake, but it's Bolo to end him in his tracks and give us a beautiful view of the basement of Troy Jaroslavsky's house as DZ goes up 2-0.
Yeah, another clean round from them. I mean, it just looks like another day in the office, really. It's just composed, it's methodical, it's 1, 2, 3 in terms of like steps. And this is what happens when you play not so much like, because like DC are not playing old school Siege, so to speak. They're still playing that new style where you spread across and you're playing like with aggression and you're going together like 3 to 1 countdowns. But it's very much like a step-by-step process that's a bit more predictable, I would say, if you study them, if you know how they play the game. But it's so hard to counter because it's thought out ahead of time. They know who's gonna go in what positions, where the fire from Capital is gonna go, where the flashbangs are landing, and unless their opponent, so SSG in this case, they land some crazy shots or have like counter intel or like a counter strat, it just looks so difficult really to find any footing here on the defensive side in the first 2 rounds. SSG will call that timeout. They will talk things through and hopefully cook up a plan and a solution at that to gain a couple of rounds here in defense before the side swap.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs as they can.
Timeout after 2 rounds is a very brisk pace to call that. I mean, call out is usually very precise with when to call his timeouts and how to maximize their impact on SSG. I will say, if you think this team is not playing up to its potential with 3 kills across 2 rounds, probably a good time to do it, and probably not playing up to their potential, that's for sure. Then you got to call it early. Big problem with calling it at this current point in time is that if things continue to go bad, or if you start to do well and then things go bad again, you can't really fix it, right? We refer to it as a parachute. It's just, that's it. You have to go about it. Oh, what? So that right there might seem quite small, but that can be the sign of a much larger problem.
Yeah.
Iconic was trying to get into Piano, and right as he does that, J90 starts castling off the door. J90 then pulls out the super shorty, shoots the wall once, trying to give Iconic a way in. Can't do it, so Iconic has to waste an impact to get it done. You've now cost time, you've wasted an impact, and it's just like that level of poor coordination can start to eat you and the team alive. Those might be the types of small mistakes that callouts saw through those 2 rounds, and that's why he might have thought, oh yeah, we need to call this timeout.
And then that happens right after DC are approaching this from a very linear direct approach right now. Thatcher, Heartbreach, and the Monty means they can just kind of open side walls and maybe approach side very much directly. Capital here can use the smokes on the ceiling of the bomb side to smoke off the verticality, because that's SSG's playbook right now. They're playing far back on the bomb side and they're relying on the players up above to deny any plant possibility. But when you have Monty, when you have Capital, smoke the ceiling, Monty walks in, DC, they arguably have a counter strategy angle right now. Of course, it comes down to execution more than anything else. SSG, they got pulse, they have reliable information from up above, but one of those C4s they have two available, have to land onto Monty as he goes to the plant, because if that bomb goes down, it's a done deal for DC in the post plant.
Got a drone in the middle of the site. Will certainly aid you. This Canadian walks in, electrified through the wall. Here goes the nitro cell dropped from above like an anchor. But nobody is found on the DZ side of things. J90 first blood yet again, second time through these 3 rounds. Bolo answers back right away. Canadian trying to drop Forest. It's Bolo to get in on the action as Canadian now must be retrieved. Ashen playing well from above, eliminating Pambazoo. This has been a very linear take from Darkzero. They just wanted to hit the site bang on, and I don't blame them for it. But they haven't done the work needed on the floor above. SSG down in numbers before Fultz equalizes. Now it's Ashen in his own plume of smoke as Canadian was reduced to 1 HP, and Ashen's toxic gas cleans up, giving SSG their first round victory.
It's a very impressive retake there from SSD, and honestly, I think strategically for a very long time, DC completely won it out. But then a few things go on the side of SSG. They get the injure onto Troy Canadian, which buys them valuable seconds. DC, they gotta slow things down, hit the reset, go for the revive. While that's happening, they start doing verticality, they find the kill vertically, an injure on Canadian, and then the toxic babes go out, finding more damage, more injures, and more kills as well. The entire round was won by Spacestation off the bomb side. Despite having 2 players on site itself, those players fell very early. But we saw the strategy there from both teams. DC, they smoked the ceiling, they smoked the side, and they actually pushed deep with the Monty, taking full bomb site control. SSG, because they had the pulse and because they had that C4, they were countering one another. It was beautiful to watch, but the retake is successful, and I gotta say, one thing that Iconic was great at on M80, like the way he plays the game and calls as a leader, were the retakes. One thing that SSG just did in last round, again, the retakes, playing together, understanding where they can assist each other despite being in pretty bad positions. But that's your kitchen and kitchen done. It's a very unique set of actions in a round that probably will not happen again in the series. So now, things will change. Upstairs we go, on that primary floor, with a heavy extension up above. We see Aruni gates, we see Jaeger ADSs and Vomai, as well as the deployable shield. This is very much like the utility method that we saw, 2 years ago, but in the new style of Siege.
Forrest first pick, by the way, comes in the first 30 seconds of the round. Goodbye to Nafe. He's been doing a pretty solid job supporting this DZ roster. No Grim, though, for the 2 minutes and 15 seconds that are remaining. That means that you will not be able to have soft destruction work on the top floor, and you won't be able to lob those bees down onto that second floor, keeping the defenders in risky positions. NJR thinks he has a read, by the way. I couldn't tell if he had a defender dead to rights on a drone and was looking for something, or if that was just one of the defender cams. All the while this is happening, Ambazu has found his own way in. Taking some damage, a couple bullets from inside a train. It necessitates an adrenal surge as Canadian looks for the follow-up pick onto him, but cannot get it. That's Fultz positioned in this spot, and if the fight comes to him too close, he's got a shotgun primed and ready. Easy need to be wary of this with half of the round now still to go.
And I think SG doing a great job right now, just sitting back. They know they got that early pick. They're in the driver's seat. They have the advantage. They need to wait for DC now to make the first moves happen. Or, of course, if they have reliable intel, they can seek out a play. But right now, you see the outlines. It's like the server stopped. They're all standing still. They know they do not have to move. DC got the Nomad. It looks like they're trying to go for this kind of like limited take, where they take a little bit of top floor, like cigar and stuff. They air jab everything. And they might be leaving the location. That's what it looked like. Now, however, it seems like they want to actually pick apart and clear top floor. J9 aggressively swings out, gets shot down by Bolo, and Canadian finds a second kill as well. All of a sudden, by moving just an inch each from these two players, they get shut down, and all of a sudden top floor is not that strong any longer.
Just don't mind us. It's going to take the next 2.5 rounds for Pampazoo to reload the LMG on red stairs. He's letting the rest of the team do all of the work. Because while SSG were successful, Bolo is taking matters into his own hands with this round, denying SSG from having an opportunity, unless, of course, Ashen can clutch a 1v4. He's allowed the bomb sites to be taken over by his opponents, his adversaries. As he sees the Finka, there's some strips through Pampazoo. There's no real intel to go off of. Denying Bolo more than 3 kills in the round is certainly something to be proud of, but too many people from DZ. There was 4 of them still alive. Bolo dies. There's 3 more to find you, and they will indeed find you and kill you. DZ making quick work so far of this first half, up 3-1.
This thing about the current DC iteration that surprised me a bit, especially at SI, picking up a player like Nave, you're thinking, okay, support player from Europe, etc. But Nave is not just a support player. He is phenomenal at actually getting kills and seeking out plays, and he is very intelligent about the way that he perceives Rainbow Six Siege. One thing that Troy wanted to get onto the roster for a long time was a second voice, essentially, a second kind of co-leader, if you will, because it's so hard to have the full overview in the current style of Siege. Attackers and defenders are usually pretty spread out, and as an in-game leader, as any player really, you only really have the information that you see in front of you or that is shared by the other voices in the roster. And bringing on someone like Nave really helps elevate how well Troy can lead the team as well. Because you have more overview, you have more voices, but when it's time to just frag it out, you get Bolo, you get Nave onto the roster, you go, guys, strategically, this round is not looking so good. Let's just start killing the opponents. And they did that last round. It's just, okay, let's walk into piano, be on the rappels, pick up 3 quick kills, go downstairs, pick up 2 more. It looks so easy and so simple, but it cannot be understated how difficult it is to do. You cannot just run over your opponents like that. We don't see it all that often, and SSG and their roster is not a team that you just run over. We saw the stat line before this game went live between Darkzero and SSG as an organization across all their iterations and rosters. And they were very close into some matchups. But right now, DC very much look like they should have been up 4-0, if anything, and are in full control.
Certainly just looks like a different DZ team from that Sonics match last week as well.
Oh, certainly.
There are obvious times when you're having a bad game, and there are times when your opponents are having a great game and making you look like you're having a bad game. I mean, time and time again against W7M, we'll say, well, why are these teams playing so poorly against them? Well, because when you're the best team in the world, you make your opponents look like they've forgotten how to play. DZ didn't really look like themselves last week. Not to take anything away from Sonics, but they didn't look as comfortable as they did right now. On the contrary, actually, on the other side of things, SSG don't look like themselves. They're not playing aggressive. Their roams aren't particularly working out. Yeah, J9O's broken the ice twice, but that's been it, really. The rest of it has been a slog and a grind for Spacestation, which again would go back to why Callout would call that timeout after just the second round.
Yeah.
Still plenty of time to turn this around. SSG on defense for just 2 more rounds, and then maybe they'll find a second wind on attack.
One of the slowest rounds so far. No killing, no entering. I think entering the building for the attackers. Fire goes out, some bees, etc. This could be the telltale sign, but no, Nave gets shut down, and surely that should mean that DC are now locked out for this one.
Should. They still got Bolo on the board.
Yeah.
Try to keep numbers close. Bolo had a very impressive previous round with 3 kills to his name. Currently leading the lobby with 7. Iconic, the only player so far yet to get on the board. Yes, his name is Iconic, not Zidane. Canadian creeping up onto this position. I don't know if he expected Iconic to be so close, but it's Iconic's first kill. I might have cast or cursed Canadian just a little bit too much there, as now it all falls up to NJR as 2 separate players from SSG will be around the corner. NJR actually flashes himself.
Unlucky.
SSG wins their second round.
The reason why I said that DC looked like locked out is because the whole point of that strategy when like you go on cocktail repel and white hallway repel is that you spend the Grimbees, you spend the Captains of Fire, you do some flashbangs, you repel in, that's your way into the map and into that round. When you die on the repel before even entering the building, you spent all your resources. You don't really get a second go or a second option, and that's why we saw DC being okay, let's just, again, try and wing it on the fly. Canadian walks into side, just crouch walking, gambling that 50-50, ends up losing it, and that just completely seals them out. It's a very big commitment when you're on those window repels, because you don't have time to go on the roof and spend 30-20 seconds to like rotate that way, or go all the way down to the bottom floor and walk up a staircase. So one of the downsides of Cathay, you're very much committed to which portion of the map that you're going to be going to. Same in a map like Consulate. Simply because it's a very long map where the rotations are just not that quick. SSG now looking better though. Figuring things out as they go after a tactical timeout. 2-3 still down this one round though. And with this final on the half, they can equalize to a 3-3 half. But it comes down to, again, that kitchen and kitchen bomb side, which historically not all that great for the defending side, but they made it work last time they tried.
The spot that Iconic is holding inside a bakery can be one that is not necessarily tough to flush out, but can prove to be quite a large obstacle for teams that aren't particularly well coordinated. DZ doesn't usually have that issue, but it's a similar spot to before Wamai existed. You used to see a Rook or a Doc play there with a Jaeger giving ADSs just to keep you safe from any kind of projectile or grenade spam that could go in that direction. Doesn't really look like Darkzero's much interest in Bakery, at least at the moment. They'll clear out the top floor first, as a team does. Make sure there are no roamers. Figure out where these players from SSG are inside of the site, and then go about your job to ensure that you're cracking it open and forcing them far enough back, whether you want to do a freezer take and drop hatch, or if you want to go from bakery into kitchen. All that said, it's been a minute, and there's been no real action so far.
Nope. A classic top-down with no roamers means a severe lack of action. But like Oregon Basement, which we saw twice earlier today, it comes down to the 5v5/4v4 execute, which honestly I find quite exciting because it gets very chaotic out of nowhere. It does mean that for 2.5 minutes, we just watch as these boogie drones, almost perfectly in sync, will tear apart the entire floor instead of mining. And then next up will be, of course, train and then dining. Break apart the entire floor, open up the hatch. Hammer's got a yellow ping. They know the player's stuck in a corner, but they have no way to really clear it out. AB Canadian with those O nades could rotate over, but he's so far off. Well, actually, he's right here. Never mind. But no, Forrest just walks in. No nade needed. They just get a freebie.
It's what happens when you tear open the floor. You make life quite miserable for those defenders. Forrest will not live long enough to tell his kids the tales of exactly what happened there. Polo now will apply some pressure over on white stairs. And the one thing those boogie drones are actually quite good for is something that Gridlock was good for at the beginning as well, which is the ungodly amount of noise that they can make. When the track stingers from Gridlock are thrown out, it can conceal a plant. Polo was hoping to open up some of that wall into freezer. He won't get it done. Instead, Canadian will drop with Osa's shield in hand. Nearsighted is now J90 looks for a kill from that deployable shield. Ashen and Fultz getting on the board. DZ suffering for it. How does Iconic pull that off? He vaults into freezer, shuts down Pambazoo. Another there to drop, as Iconic is just ready and waiting for all of these engagements and gets all of them as SSG snipes the round away from DZ.
They certainly snipe it away, but I gotta blame DC for that one. They heavily misplayed the round by my standards at least, because they had 3 players drop the freezer hatch, or 2 drop the freezer hatch. 1 person was bought on white staircase. Nobody was on the vertical up above. Nobody was covering the plant. So Canadian on the OSA drops first. He has his shield, in front of him. He walks deep, ready to plant. There's no C4s on defense. There's no toxic babes. There's not even a single impact grenade. That is a done deal for Troy the moment that he arrives in the bomb site. All DC need is the most crucial step that cannot be missed. Someone's gotta stay on those holes you opened up, 50 seconds early in that round. And there wasn't, because they dropped the 3 people on the backside. There was no one left up above, essentially. So SSG just run through site, they pick up the kills, and again, they excel in that retake position, and they have to play together and just isolate members or put 2 versus 2s to like leverage back the numbers, essentially. Gonna have a quick tech pause, I guess. While we can see Iconic with his sheet going through the motions here, saying, "This is the breakdown of our upcoming rounds."
Now, I'm not gonna narc here,
Okay,
but if this is actually a technical pause, teams are not technically supposed to be able to talk to each other. If it's a tactical timeout, perfectly fine. But if it is actually a tech pause, neither team should be able to communicate in that tech pause, and they certainly shouldn't be able to do stratting. So hopefully we can get some clarification here as to whether it's a tech pause or it's a timeout that's been called. Remember, there were some, I don't think there were any fines that were given at the 6 Invitational, but multiple teams received warnings from the admins about talking during tech pauses.
yep.
Distinction here for those that are curious is that a tactical timeout can be called once per team per map. SSG called theirs after the second round concluded as DZ was up 2-0. It has seemingly paid off. Since that timeout, SSG has gone 3-1. But a tech pause is something that is usually outside of a team's control. It can be something like server issues. It could be something like your headphones stop working, or your TeamSpeak stops working, or there's some kind of game issue. That's usually called by the admins. And that is a time when you are not allowed to, as far as we are aware, strategize. So we'll wait if there's any confirmation to come in. You can wait from here. I don't know if there was any server issues, but I will say that at one point Iconic was on the bottom of the server. Now he's moved up above Fultz, so maybe there was a reconnect that needed to happen. I'm not entirely certain.
Actually, a good observation, because it's true. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important just to touch on your point that there are consistency in rules, because it seems to kind of change back and forth. Sometimes players can talk, sometimes players cannot talk. It's also a bit confusing for viewers and even for us casters, you know, like what is the angle here for players, because it's a mixed bag. But it's tied up 3-3. It is a 5v5. And, you know, now we gotta figure out for SSG, do they know that same kind of attacking lingo that Darkzero did? Because, yeah, we're thinking, okay, it's a close series. But getting 3 attack rounds on Cafe, and arguably Darkzero could have gotten a 5-1 half if they had fixed up those like tiny mistakes. That's a very impressive feat to achieve, essentially, or accomplish. The same kind of utility being played from both sides. Castle barricades, Aruni gates, nice Ash charge there, hitting the floor to circumvent the Aruni gate, but still blowing up the castle barricade. Small little tricks there, saving you ADS clear, essentially, or in this case, Aruni clear. Nade kill actually happening, hello? Doesn't happen all that often. The fire, of course, forced. Bolo on the desk, the nade bounced, then finished him off. He was pretty low on HP, but he was not injured. It was a live grenade kill.
I like how we have to create this distinction now.
Yeah, it's so different, right?
I know.
Big change up.
Nafe maybe in a bit of trouble at top white right now, as there are smokes that go out, Bs that go out as well. Bolo and Nafe, the 2 newest additions to DZ, are gone. Spacestation are just crushing DZ through these last couple rounds. Darkzero in a troubling spot. Iconic has been dropped, but other than that, SSG are fighting at levels well ahead of DZ. All up to Canadian and NJR. Canadian actually having a relatively good game by his own standards. He's the mastermind of this roster, but he's not a mechanical god. He's certainly not known for top fragging. The fact that he is keeping lockstep with the rest of DZ is usually a worrying sign. He'll have to pad these stats now as he's last alive. NJR killed. Canadian struggling with Fultz, who dances from above, and SSG take the lead.
That was actually very cheeky because it looked like he was gonna drop down, so Canadian like tracks the drop as well, but he just sidestepped on the balcony instead. But yeah, SSG just proved to us they very well know how to attack. They did the steps very well. Step 1, clear out those arena gates, clear out the castle barricades, weaken the setup that DC has built for themselves up above, And then we saw step 2, utility. The fire paired with the grenade, paired with the beast from the Grim, perfectly cleared up the majority of top floor. Then they rappel in, and it's just pure dominance in the server, also having those flank lockdown the entire time. And now we'll go for that tech break last round to a tactical timeout from the setup DC now, because they recognized they got absolutely bamboozled in that first defensive round.
What did you drop?
My pen. I angrily put it on my mousepad. So nothing was dropped in reality.
Easy obviously not liking that first look that they saw of this second half, but I don't think it's just that. I think that DZ's got some greater struggles here based on the results of the previous rounds. SSG since the timeout now up to an impressive 4-1 tally, continuing to add to the success round over round. Ashen has picked things up. Iconic had 0 kills 2 rounds ago. He's up to 4 already, which meets or exceeds everybody on DZ whose name is not Bolo.
Yeah, one of the downsides of individual performances is that, you can win rounds and say, oh, they're doing great, don't worry about it. But if it is just one player popping off and nothing else really working out, in the bigger picture of things, those rounds are not working out greatly for you. Now, I will say though, Bolo got a lot of his kills based off of teamwork on the attacking side. It was not just him walking into a door getting a kill. There was some flashbangs going, there are drones at his feet, like they had good reliable intel, and he just had to kind of clutch up. So I'm not too worried for Darkzero in terms of like the killing department, but more so it seems like their communication is a bit off, right? On the last couple attacking rounds, small issues with massive consequences went the wrong way. On that first defense, they didn't look like they were proactively playing the round. They had a stop position, then they died in that stop position, and then they had no way back in. It was very important on Cafe that you play proactively. You're kind of expecting or maybe calculatedly guessing what the enemy might be doing next. Because once you commit to being stuck in a corner, you're going to be stuck in that corner for a while because of these rappel angles from outside the building, etc. So it's very important that you have a good read on your opponent's next move as well as the current move.
Bolo, the first pick so far in this round. These teams converting the round right after a tactical timeout in the right direction, at least so far for Darkzero. One reason why Doc sees play at this level is that if there's any chip damage that's done, just these minor skirmishes where you lose 30 to 60% of your HP, the stim pistols from Doc can get you back to full HP and then give you the overbuff right now that you see both Bolo and Canadian hanging on to. It doesn't last forever, it slowly wears away. There you have both Bolo and Canadian now back at full HP. Sledge is a rarity in the meta at this point. Unfortunately, we won't see much of it with Forrest being the one riding the sledge, now gone from action.
Oh, I mean, thing is not necessarily that important. Oh, C4, this is more important. Now Ram is down as well. No vertical play left over for the attacking side. And Zidane, I was going to say Zidane, but rather Iconic starting there on the white staircase, also getting shut down by DC.
Ashen fishing from above. Just zooms out at the wrong time.
Unlucky.
It's not exactly winnable for SSG if he gets that pick, but it at least becomes far more likely. Volts clears it out. Start getting the diffuser down. He doesn't feel particularly good about it, and that's because the kill hole's from above for good reason. Ashen coming to the rescue. Canadian to deal immense amount of damage as Ashen will now move elsewhere. You've got a Solus and a Pulse on the board. It doesn't even matter if it's a 5v5. This is a harrowing prospect to get that diffuser planted. Ashen eliminates Nafe. The intel ops from DZ are still very much in play, and they both have a read as to where this player from SSG is. Bambazoo gets the kill, though he and Canadian were both in the hunt. And the long look of frustration on Canadian's face tells the story. This is a grueling match for both of these teams.
Yeah. I was streaming earlier today, and I was talking to a chat about like the longevity of players and what the schedule looks like when you play in Pro League, because you do have like 8 to 12 hour days, which is like you're scrimming, you're doing theory, like you're boot camping before like a major, for example. Like it's pretty hard to have that like work-life balance that enables you to play for a long time. And then every time that's a topic, people go, what about Canadian? And it is a really good point, right? What about this guy? He's been around for as long as you can remember. He's been in so many grand finals on both the losing side and the winning side. You know, roster changes, he knows them. DC, they keep rebuilding, changing things, building in, young rookie players, trialing happily, Gavin, Rise, NTR, Pambasu, be like, oh guys, we'll teach you the game. That's all Canadian, time and time again. And he finds himself in yet another season. It seems like he's always here. It's like one of the few staples of Siege Pro League. Canadian, he's gonna be in a season, he's gonna make an international tournament pretty much every single time. He won't win it necessarily with DC, but they're always there fighting for it and getting closer and closer with time. I wish at one point in my career, back when I was a player, that I had the pleasure of playing on a team with Canadian. Yeah, I was a content creator for DC, but we didn't work together like one-to-one. I played on the Fabian. That was a legendary leader. But Troy is definitely in a league of his own as well. Cannot be understated the value that it brings to a team and a roster.
Obviously, I don't play, so I can't really speak to the experience that comes with playing with these players, but every single person who has teamed with Canadian has talked at length about his vision of the game, his understanding of the game, and the impact that he can have on teams. Another North American player that was talked about in a very similar sense, albeit quite differently, was Super.
Yeah.
Because there's no arguing Super's mind for the game, but obviously Super's impact in the matches, in the actual game, was a far cry from what you saw from Canadian. It just got to a point where Sonics had to move Super, or whether Super wanted to move, I'm not entirely sure the circumstances, but the team needed another player with firepower to step in. There will come a point in Rainbow Six where Canadian finds himself in that same position where he just can't hang, he just can't hang anymore with players in terms of gun skill, but for the time being, he's got some issues, but still showing up when need be. 6 and 5, by the way, as he was being hunted down by Fultz's Deimos. Forrest dies again to start off the round, not exactly what SSG wants. Canadian was being tracked by Fultz, gets finished off by J90. These two have been involved in the fray, Nick, 4 times now by my count.
Yeah.
Just through 9 rounds is quite odd, but still very funny.
No, it is. And again, it's the vertical players of Forest in general always falling early or struggling in these rounds. Very important positions because they gotta break the floor. They gotta do vertical destruction. Ashen, though, steps up, finds a kill. But look at that. Pambasu goes undroned, unpunished, and gets a kill. Now it's chaos in the server, but thankfully Iconic is quickly there to trade it back. But look at this. SSG, 2 players on a single point of health against 3 toxic babes from Nave. That could definitely be one of the ways to go out here.
It will kill J90 with a single huff of that gas. Iconic might survive 1, but it'll be tough. The only player at full HP was Ashen. He gets out-dueled by Nath. There's Iconic dead to NJR, secured by the impact. Call that a Pokeball, as he has caught Iconic. Now it's J90 to ensure he doesn't get caught with Diffuser in hand, but Ram is not a particularly agile operator. Nearsighted onto red. As he drops, there's a shotgun from Nave waiting for him. That'll seal the deal in the round, and Darkzero comes out ahead.
Not a whole lot of celebration there. I mean, yeah, you're only up 5-4 and stuff, but it seems like it's like, okay, boys, we won the round, Let's go next round and win that too, if possible. I like it though. We see a lot of different approaches in the server where some teams and some players, they will almost over-celebrate all the small victories and try and ride that high, that momentum, that like really positive energy. But those same teams often, when things are not going well, they look so shattered, almost like their soul was taken. DC play it more, I almost say, not emotionless, but more of a cool, calm, collected when it comes like their emotions. The job's not done. That was like 1 round of many. We gotta go for the next one. And it's fascinating to watch just the differences, especially on LAN. The loudness of some teams versus the quietness of others. All, of course, doing it with the intent of they thinking that their system is the better one. Or at the very least, that system that they use work better for that specific team.
10 seconds remaining.
Some things changed and some things stayed the same. Utility and operators, very similar to before. Got the dock with a gun for the healing capabilities, and then it's this pure utility game for Darkzero. Mute, Wamai, Mira, Castle, all about sitting up shop upstairs, holding cigar cocktail, having pressure in towards piano from bathroom as well. And that's also why we see SSG again counter-picking very heavily. Hibana, Capital, Twitch, Grimash, the entire lineup is basically one big counter lineup where they can deal with mirror window. That's Ash and its Twitch. They can even fire those player positions. That's gonna be the Capital. If they need intel on those player positions, it's the Grim. So this is all about utility fighting utility. These openings are so important for both sides. SSG, I would say, have done a great job of just making sure they have all the tools they need to have a good counterplay. Nave sees it though, shuts down the first switch run of Manny to come. And it's gonna stall out the attack for now. SSG not
Wait,
getting
hold on a
what they
second.
want.
Did you say the first Twitch drone of many to come?
Yeah, there you go. There's Manny.
There's
1, 2,
two of
3.
them. What do you mean of many?
She has 4 drones,
There's only
okay?
one more.
She has 2 Twitch drones, so she has 4 drones. That's a lot of drones.
All right. I'll
The first of
I'll
second
allow it.
Twitch drone, the first of many drones to come. I'm sorry.
allow it. Watch yourself.
Thank you.
You're on thin ice.
I'll be careful, okay? I know I'm slipping here, okay? It's late. It is 3 a.m. in Denmark.
Well, Forrest involved in the first fight again. 3rd round in a row, but he comes out of the favorable side this time as Bolo is punished. Now utility being dumped towards the top of White Stairs, courtesy of Iconic. He will have some struggles to open up the castle barricade, keeping the defenders safe from bathroom into back bar. NJR, a Nitro Cell, find Forrest. Fultz trades back onto Pambazoo. Every single trade that happens benefits SSG up to this point. Nafe will equalize onto Fultz. Basically, you get a kill from SSG, and then you get killed immediately thereafter. But a kudos, honestly, to Darkzero for keeping this close. The fact that SSG is getting a pick and then is being traded right back bodes well for DZ for the remainder of the round. So bright spots for both of these teams, but a bit of a dark spot as Darkzero doesn't understand that the diffuser is going to go down. J90 has it in hand, SSG holding from above, and DZ will now have to scramble. Nafe on the bottom floor, NJR on the middle floor, Canadian all the way on top. Every single floor being covered by DZ, but they need to coalesce around that middle floor where the diffuser is located. NJR will sit on it, gets the disable down, shot through the door, traded back. Nafe is last man standing as Iconic eliminates Canadian as well. The coverage from above, far too good. SSG equalized. None of these games are going to be blowouts today. 10 rounds, 5 apiece so far on Cafe.
That was a very classic, quote-unquote, Astralis round, basically, from SSG. And if you know, they have a lot of former Astralis members here in the roster. It's when they go for an off-pace play, where if you're Darkzero in that round, you're thinking, they're going to destroy the floor, they're going to put the flank cams, they're going to be planting maybe 30 seconds from now. Because mind you, when the bomb went down, there's like 50, 40 seconds left. But this is where the off timing comes. They just full sprint aside, instantly starts planting, and they don't even have cover. It's technically speaking a really bad plan to go for, but it works so well because Darkzero are not ready for it. It's not supposed to happen, if you will, so it catches them off completely off guard. And it's the same thing when we saw SSG. This is like 7 rounds ago, back when they were on defense. Often when SSG are in like a 2v1 situation, they will do this very unique thing of stacking players together in the exact same spot. One person standing, one person crouched, holding the same exact angle essentially, making it 2v1. That's also a good old quote-unquote Astralis thing that has been brought over to this current iteration of Spacestation. And I love to see those small characteristics and team traits kind of transferring, because it shows like what kind of players or coaching staff, in this case of Paula, for example, where that kind of stems from. So back to a 5v5, it really is a back and forth here. And yeah, you're right. Last round, it was very impressive that DC kept up with the trades. It's very hard on Cafe as a defender to find those straight kills because you often die to the window repels, etc., to utility, capital fire, nades, etc. But DC did do a good job at that. It just happened to be that diffuser went down out of nowhere, and then again, those post plans are so difficult when you're playing defense.
My favorite round?
Yep. The penultimate round.
I mean, it could be a penultimate round. It could go to overtime. Penultimate round of regulation.
Yes.
I'm willing to say that. Another crack at this middle floor bomb site for Darkzero, who seem to have worked things out through the mid-round,
Oh no.
then just ultimately losing the plot,
Someone help.
just as Pambazoo is done. Jumping out of white, Ashen kills him and then hits him with the question mark, which probably hurts more than any bullet that Pambazoo suffered.
Damn. I mean, I don't hate the jump out like that, but I like seeing when teams do it like together. Let's say someone else jumped out, saved Pambazoo, they made the play together, etc. So okay, you're playing 2v1. Unless Ashen hits some ridiculous shots, surely he will die. Instead, Pamba probably saw with the scan that he was on cams or, you know, looking the wrong way or whatever, or he might have had info on him. He jumps out solo, it doesn't go the right way. Now DCP 4v5. It's just not a great look, really. Especially not from a team that is used to having such good coordination. We don't see that right now. It seems like the comms are not there for DC right now. It gets worse.
Things are obviously of concern for this team. Neither have access to their timeout any longer, so... Oh my! Olo's gonna try to keep Darkzero in this one with a hero play upstairs in Cocktail. Both Fultz and J90 were sent in to kill Bolo, and neither succeed. Utility now from SSG slowly running out, all of it in the hands of Capitao at this point. No smokes in the pocket for Forest, no Twitch drones either. No bees for Ashen's Grim. So you've got to go for kills, and that's exactly what SSG is gonna do. Removing everybody in the server except for Canadian that has a DZ at the end of their name, and now he's next at the hands of Iconic the King. SSG moves to match point.
I mean, it looked like Bolo might have saved the round there for a brief moment, but the thing about Spacestation is that whenever they kind of get knocked down a little bit and you think, they gotta reset the round, they gotta fall back, they gotta regroup. No, they just tend to re-aggress into it and continue on that same track they were before with like that small adaptation. Okay, they're in that top floor verticality. That's not gonna stop them. They're still gonna proceed going forward. And they're kind of stealing back these rounds that you think other teams probably would have lost. SSG on 6-5 now, kind of clawing it back. If we go back to the very beginning here, DC won like the first 3 out of 4 rounds, so to speak. It was 2-0 for Darkzero, then became a 3-1 for Darkzero. And then ever since that scoreline, it's just been SSG equalizing, 1 round behind, equalizing, 1 round behind. Now they're in the lead on match point, and they have the, DC, they gotta make the decisions here. What bombs do they go to? They gotta go kitchen and kitchen. Historically not a great side for the defending side, but in this matchup, for some reason, it tends to work out pretty well for defense. Now Spacestation have blown up their roster. They have gone through a couple different iterations, but they settle on this kind of do-it-all roster, right? They got double verticality on Forest and I know on Ram and Buck, which they need because one of them always dies early, so that's a great like safety net essentially. They get Iconic on the IQ. They can find stuff like, let's say if DC played an Echo or a cheeky C4 somewhere, that's going to be taken care of. They have Roam Clear in the demos on Fultz. And they got Grim, which is just always great, generally speaking. Heartbreach gadget, secondary shotgun, great primary, and always useful gadget, whether it's roam clearing or for execute. This is probably one of the strongest operator lineups for whatever might happen to them. So it's a great kind of taking all the boxes here from SSG. When it comes down to, again, the execute, the specifics. We know there are no roamers from Darkzero. But they're just gonna double check with demos, We're gonna scan Nave. He's in the downstairs and kitchen near the bomb site. They should know now that the coast is clear.
It was a breakneck pace that was established early on, Nick, has fallen off. SSG have been very methodical with these attacks. Both of these teams have had issues with speed in the past. SSG with almost being too fast, DZ with being too slow. Having an SSG team that is firing on all cylinders is a frightening thing. I mean, you've got a lot of really good tools here. I like the Astralis comparisons because a lot of people will look at this and this SSG team has the skeletons of the Astralis squad,
Yeah.
What do? You take Fultz from the old SSG team, you add Ashen, who was at the time a rookie, and well, no shuttle, no DP fire, but bones are there, and that Astralis team always had good bones. Being able to push DZ to 0-2 is quite bad, frankly. But I will say, if you consider that Sonics and SSG might be top 4 teams in North America, it doesn't mean that this stage is doomed for Darkzero. But DZ starting off 0-2 is especially bad for their Manchester chances. Obviously wanting to keep themselves in this, leadership comes from the leader himself, and Canadian will step up, rise to this occasion, eliminating Fultz. No Deimos, no ability to narrow down these remaining defenders. Forrest getting the diffuser down before he's met at the hands of Bolo with a nitro cell. J90 inching his way out of Freezer to try and take up position as he eliminates NJR. Looking for more, can't find it. He's lost Ashen, so it's just him and Iconic. Iconic now swinging around over towards Whiskey. Bolo dies, and Iconic gets baited in. He gets a kill, but he's traded out immediately, and DZ is at their best when they are trading. They are keeping it close together. That will 100% be taken out of context, and I am here for it. Bolo allows DZ to go to overtime. There is still more work to be done, as we are guaranteed at least 2 more rounds.
It really feels like when DC are down bad and struggling, there is just one person that keeps saving them. At SI, honestly speaking, it was Nath. Like, so many rounds. Now, right now, domestically, it's Bolo. And yeah, whenever he tries to save the round, it doesn't always pan out into a victory, but he's the reason why it looks like they have a really good fighting chance. What we just witnessed was an actual save. If that bomb goes down, which was very close, I think less than a second or two, that might just be it. That might be a done deal. 7-5 victory for SSG, but it gets denied by the C4 out of nowhere from Bolo. Now we're in overtime. It's 6-6. DC will stay on the defense. SSG stays on attack. Things stay the same as with the bomb side, because straight back to Kitchen and Kitchen they will go. But if we look at the lineup, now, very different, right? Fenrir, Solus, and Lesion. This speaks more to our roaming presence, trying to, again, really force the attackers to go low on time. Then the Echo comes into play. They plant with 0 seconds. Yokai stun, bam, boom, you win the round. The other one is you try and play for kills. You roam actively, maybe get a kill or 2, and you hope that's enough to basically pick apart the attack and lineup. Well, either they will lose, their droning, they will lose their soft destruction, or they will lose some crucial intel that they have available to them, or utility rather, that they have available to them. So, Darkzero completely changing the win condition for this round compared to that of the last.
This is not the penultimate round, by the way, because there's at least 2 more to go. This could be the penultimate round if one of these teams wins overtime 2-0. I know the score says 6-6, but imagine it's 0-0 and it's first to 2. That's really all you got to do. Sure. Canadian gets pretty good value out of the Solus as Pambazu looked for a kill, could not find it out on balcony. J90 was not far removed from where Canadian was looking.
I mean, it's another roam clear, but SSG are not really speeding up here. They're kind of slowing down, and this often happens in overtime. Oh, as I say that, Canadian finds Fultz. That's Jackal off the board, but a good trade there back onto Pambasu. Equalizes again into a 4v4. But often teams in overtime will slow things down. Higher pressure, if you lose, that consequence of that much bigger. But DC are stuck in these kind of tough positions. Bolo very much stuck inside of train. Player on top floor as well, but SSG, they might be hitting the side here, I'm not entirely sure.
Suddenly, there are only 6 people remaining, as everybody is killing everybody in and around the bomb site. The execute seems to be going completely underway. Bolo with 1, he's killed. Ash in a miracle play. It's up to Canadian to save the day for his team against his opposing team, his former team. He does some damage, but it's Ashen to roar from inside a kitchen, and SSG will move to match point.
What even happened that round? We're seeing players fighting on the roam, top floor and primary first floor, and then all of a sudden they're on the bomb site. 3 attackers, only 2 defenders, and the whole strategical element of that round goes right out the window. DC wanted to stall for time, deny the roam clear. SSG, they kind of half commit to the roam, half commit to the side, but it's over with half the round left in terms of time essentially, and the echo doesn't matter, the roam doesn't really matter, the retake isn't successful. SSG, they've made a pretty decent comeback here, I gotta say. But that's in the attack inside, where they looked like they were very much in control. Now, because it's Nova time, you swap sides every single round. They either have to win here in defense and show us they can do it all, or they gotta go all the way to 7-7 and risk it on their final round, which will be on the attack if they go there. Tough one though. And you're right, DC going 0-2 to start things off is not a great look. It's not over by any means, but it's certainly not what we expected from them either.
10 seconds remaining.
It's been a battle of the beasts. Both of these teams obviously playing at SI, both having very high aspirations and thinking that they are absolutely capable of deep runs. North America did not have the greatest set of results in Brazil. NA had decent representation in the top 6, but ultimately couldn't get past that very first set of matches. Brazilian fans loved it though, getting to have Brazilian teams make it that deep on in.
My device is ready.
I mean, it's always hard playing in front of a crowd like that too. I think it's
absolutely.
hard to explain, but there's something about 10,000 people rooting for your downfall in person that can be kind of hard to deal with as a player sometimes, you know? It's certainly a factor.
Something that goes often seldom unseen. That single drone can lead to a kill, and that single kill can lead to a huge opportunity for the attackers and even a potential round win, all off of one piece of information, and it'd be very challenging to see that at this level of play. Teams are constantly gaining information, whether it be on attack or on defense. And it is often a mystery to us unless we go back into the replay files, as observing can only do so much. There's just an abundance of things to be looking at all times. I've said this many times, but observing is genuinely an art, and I don't envy their job because it is significantly harder than ours.
Yeah.
This map in particular has been absolutely chaotic. I wouldn't even know where to start.
No, it's a good point. I mean, right now, what are we looking at? Like, what's happening? Who's going to be the player to make the first move? There are 10 players. Most are standing still. But one person will make a move at some point that will spiral things out of control in a snowballing-like effect. Right now, Stinano on the fire. Again. And it spreads, and he goes down. But that took 2 minutes of effort just to clear out that first player. Now, DC, they really got to speed up. We spoke about this earlier. DC tend to have a time problem. This is overtime, and right now, they are having a time problem. 40 seconds to go. It is 5v4 in their favor, but they're not going to have time to clear everything out successfully.
Oh my!
No!
How does he get away with that? Ash in the run out onto Terrace, and he'll head for home. He might have just completely destroyed any hopes of a comeback from Darkzero as SSG doubles up on numbers and continues their winning ways. All they need to do is find Bolo, who is looking to break 20 kills but can't get the job done. SSG, wake up and dominate Darkzero, winning it in overtime. And there's the king himself.
Yeah, I mean, it was a slow start, but oh my, the ending. Anshin also, I believe, finished on 19 kills himself. They're getting so many highly impactful kills round after round, and especially in overtime. On match point, that's how you ended. A run out, getting a double kill, catching the perfect timing on the repel animation. I mean, that is just a heartbreaking round for DC because they had the opening kill.
They've all got the same pair of glasses on. They are so corny. I love it though. I absolutely love how they just lean into that corny and dorkiness. I think it's excellent and it makes for great content. And when I say those words, I mean them endearingly. I'm not trying to belittle them. I genuinely think that kind of thing brings a lot of spice to our esport and all esports, and we would be better off if more teams did the type of thing that SSG does after the matches. But Nick, that's it for this particular match. There's one more to go. Both of these teams have been in action earlier today. I'm not going to spoil who they are, because if you haven't been paying attention, we said it a couple times, you're going to fail that part of the test. We got a break ready for you. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
The 29th chapter in the textbook of Darkzero and Spacestation just got written. Another best of one in the books, and now Spacestation has officially tied Darkzero in the amount of wins they have one another since 2019. An 8-6 cafe game now means that Spacestation and DZ have won the same amount of games against one another over the past 5 years, and even if that game was a little slower than we thought and wasn't the rage in the cage that maybe we hyped it up to be, still very solid siege from both teams overall.
Solid siege indeed. It was a very slow burn game. We actually saw a couple Capitao fires, burning people out. But when it came down to the slow back and forth, just really winding down the time, this game was all about utility, execute, and following through. And that's what we saw from both teams, and that's why it just went down to the wire round after round.
And it came down to some hero plays as well. And, we hyped it up. I said, Iconic, give me a little something. He did. We said, Ashen, he's got something in the tank. He delivered. And, of course, Bolo gave us a little bit of that show as well, right? We saw a little bit of that flash. Even NJR, he was positioned in one round under the freezer hatch.
Yeah.
Just sitting there waiting for someone to walk up to him. A ballsy play. It worked for him. Of course, SSG coming out overall in OT, though, after they just put together a little bit more good siege consistently.
It almost felt like every round that had Kitchen in it, at some point, it was all freezer hatch oriented. Every time, whether it's someone vaulting in, if it's someone dropping, if it's an execute, if we're hotboxing bunker or something, all of it relates back specifically to that one site. But there were other things played in this game. There's other stuff we can focus on.
The most exciting part was definitely the start of the game when SSG was on defense, and obviously DC was going step by step at clearing out, and they were obviously picking up steam. And then you saw the wheels turning in SSG's head. They decided to stall out a little bit more and force DZ, instead of fighting them head on, force them to come to you, force them to execute, and that's when they were able to utilize their trades and utilize the utility. Because at first, it was all DZ the whole time with the crossfires that they were setting up. We talked about it in the pre-show. They wanted SSG to go for those fights, wasn't going in their favor. So props to SSG for being able to realize that, forcing DZ to do that, and then just being one step ahead, going back and forth, trying to out-adapt Darkzero.
And when SSG moved on to the attacking side, I loved the innovation we saw from them as well. We saw a little bit more Deimos in the mix today, something we've seen quite a good bit. We saw one round in particular where they used that Deimos, that death tracker, to find Canadian on the Solus, track him down and take him out. Did that around the 90-second to 1 minute mark left, really allowing them a little bit more freedom come that execute phase, as you mentioned, Fox, because they did not have to worry about the Solus scanner. Denying that defuse really opened their options for them.
They opened them, absolutely. If you are a big authentic Siege fan, this is a game that you love to watch because it was really just a methodical brain battle, team after team just slowly dissecting the other. It really came down to those last little executes. The stats are just so close together in the way both teams were able to perform, and it just came down to when that pressure was on the backs of both teams. Big players made big plays. Ashen jumped out the window, and they were able to clean it up in the last 2 rounds, just sweep it to 8-6.
Speaking of Ashen, because it's Cafe and because it's such a massive map, he had free reign to do almost whatever he felt like on Cafe. 19 frags for the young man, and all of it felt like it came together here on round 3, and he simply didn't stop from that point on.
I mean, it was just, again, the word we use to describe Ashen is consistent. And crazy that we're saying that with someone who drops 19 kills.
He's also crazy, to be fair.
He's crazy. He's consistent. He's reliable here. And it's not like he's dropping 19 kills every single game consistent, but he is a reliable performer for this team. We see that time and time again. That's why we hyped him up coming into this game. And yet again, he did not disappoint.
6 multi-kills. He didn't disappoint at all. I mean, when you're put in these positions, especially with the pressure on the line, some players crumble under that pressure, some players thrive. Obviously, Ashen is the latter. He plays a lot better when the backs are against him, when he has everything on his shoulders, because he's in such a comfortable environment. He gets to just have that little bit of fun, a little bit of extra playroom, and he's the player that's going to go for those plays. And if he dies, he knows that he has everybody else to be able to play behind that utility.
I also feel like he had a little bit of the vengeance stim running through his veins because he went against Darkzero at SI and wasn't able to get the dub, and now he's able to do that here, even if it's just in a best of 1. He's the top performer. Iconic went from bottom of the scoreboard last week to 2nd place just behind him, and even though Bolo didn't win, he was still giving us highlight reel clips. We would have shown them earlier had DZ won. He came really close, but DZ just couldn't get it over the line.
Great player. I mean, always has been, and it's a great addition to this team, or good that he's coming back to this team. And yeah, he had a good performance. It's something he did last week, as you mentioned. If he can keep that up, right, and the rest of this DZ core can match that, I think they're, again, on to greener pastures. Today they had a tough opponent, and playing that slow, methodical style, they leaned into it. SSG leaned into it.
Both teams can do it.
And the better team just came out on top.
Bolo shook the rust off, and obviously it looks disheartening if you're a DZ fan going down 0-2, but they played two very strong opponents, so I have no fear with the rest of Darkzero, especially with them taking a little bit more time, getting a little bit more info on other teams. Darkzero is a very strategy-based team, so more information means more strategy.
Well, for right now, DZ is 0-2, but Space Station are 2-0. Let's get Ashton in here to talk about how good that win must have felt. Brother, I remember watching that clip from SI, you getting right in Troy's face. This game, you did the exact same thing, but now you actually have a dub. Tell me how good it feels, man.
Yep, I told him, he'd see me again, and that's exactly what happened. It was a very hype game. Felt good to bring that one out, and just great team performance overall. Dave, he's fitting in really well, so I'm excited for the future.
The future's looking bright.
Even if you can't see it because you have shades on, but
But the future is a little bit away, and if we're talking about time, that game was a slow burn. And when the pressure ends up building up, you get to that overtime round. I know we talk a lot about how pressure affects teams negatively, but how does it affect your team positively? Because you obviously popped off in overtime. So talk to me a little bit how the pressure affects you guys positively.
I find pressure to be a privilege, on this caliber of just this playing field, just like in any sport, esport, anything, doesn't matter. But with pressure, we have a pretty good performance protocol backed by our coach, call out. So, he gets us right on it. And, we strive in the pressure. We've seen it so many times before, NAL last year, Atlanta, SIs, doesn't matter. We just strive in chaos. We love the pressure.
I can't lie. You may have dropped the hardest quote of this new year.
Inspirational. I'm sitting here, I got goosebumps right now.
No, that is definitely, that goes to show just how confident you guys are as a team. And that leads me into my next question is picking up Dave. You guys obviously are iconic for those of you that don't know him at home. Picking up a player like that who's able to add a whole new arsenal to your guys' roster. Do you guys play off of him a lot to call adaptations? Is it stuff that you guys practice beforehand? Or is it mostly just on-the-fly calls from your IGL?
Yeah, so adding to what Fultz said in the last interview is, we switched the calling system. How Dave now has the final say and on attack and defense, and so he's a big factor in the adapting. But we also do have Fultz and Forrest, who are big heavy hitters and contributors to help Dave out. And so it's usually just them three kind of cooking it. Dave has the final say, and then we just trust the team. And today it worked out. Every single day you trust your team, then you're gonna be in a pretty good spot. So.
Well, Ashton, I want to stay with that for a second because there was one round in particular where after it, you were hyped up as you always are, but I also saw iconic. He brought out the notebook, he held it up, and he just started reading off of the strategy, right? You mentioned that adaptability, right? In those moments, what is being communicated to your team about how to move forward and progress in the matchup?
Yeah, we going into these games, we have a really good game plan. Backed by a call out, and it's just sticking to the game plan. It's just, we always have a great game plan going into the game. It's just about executing at the end of the day. So, he's reading out the notes, he's reading out what we need, what we need to do. So, we just follow that, and then we'll be on the right track to, succeed pretty well in the matches and just overall.
So if you call back to 2023 stage where everybody was playing multiple best of ones a day on some days, it wasn't an everyday thing, but it did happen a lot. I think that's coming up for you guys at some point as well, because you're gonna have to, there will be a day where you play two best of ones back to back. Everyone thought they were safe and didn't have to worry about it this stage. We get some reshuffling. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Is there anything different that you do on days where you have to play more than one matchup, and what are you gonna look for when you get to that point?
Yeah, so a lot of these teams, they think that they can handle the mental fortitude and just the overall, the amount of energy they need for these games. But at the end of the day, they just ended up wasting usually in their first game, and they're usually tired by the second. For us, we train a lot with high intensity and stuff that harder situations in scrims that would be nowhere near to be on game day. So we're always prepared and ready for anything, any duration of match, anything like that. So that's a big advantage that we have over other teams. A lot of these other teams, they're just soft. Soft players. Soft.
Wise words from the master himself. Ashton, thanks a lot, dude. We'll see you next week again. Congrats on the strong start.
Shout out to Coleman's. Shout out to Coleman's.
He said it, not me.
Ronnie.
There it is. The shades are coming out every time Spacestation win. I think what Fultz had it in his interview, they just put them all on immediately. It's kind of hard to match an energy in the NAL with what Spacestation has. The vibes are at an all-time high.
Yeah, they're just all talking quotes. Like, I just feel like being inspirational, just tough times.
Pressure
make
is a
strong men.
privilege. Dude, I
Pressure.
love
That
that.
was
Girl. I'm going
hard.
to take that one and like use it in my work. That sounds great.
That entire interview, I mean, he was oozing this energy that, I don't know, if I was in the league, I'd be scared to go up against them.
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
What's that like?
Pressure makes diamonds.
Pressure makes diamonds. Oh my gosh.
Homie's out here quoting the art of war or something. Everything I hear from this team just sounds the
Gosh,
same.
it's the call-out Bible.
No, seriously, it might be.
It really is. I mean, that's the mentality. They
Ego
have.
is the enemy. What other books does he have those guys read on the rig?
They say
no
they say they view every player, every team as a gray face. Like when you're playing like a video game and you haven't unlocked the next level.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like they don't worry about it. They just focus one game at a time.
Well, at one point, they're going to have more than one game they have to worry about playing on some days. But today, one and done. They're all set. But the next two teams we have on deck for our final matchup of today played earlier, and now we have to see if what Ashton said is true, if they're soft or if they're ready to play for the second time in 24 hours after the break.